Hello and welcome back to another in-depth weather video. Today we're going to be talking about thunderstorms, heavy rain, a little look into the tropics. We're still covering some drought conditions, and then we're going to finish it off with a little overview with the models. Here I am on the National Weather Service page. We have some excessive heat watches in the Twin Cities area, as well as some of the Mid-Atlantic, as well as heat advisories in most of the central part of the country, as well as some in Alabama, and a couple red flag warning spots, and then we have those air quality alerts spread out across the nation. Other than that, just a few counties in some of these other watches, warnings, and advisories down here in this kind of index for the map. Now let's move on to the radar. Now we're still tracking that super soaker type of storm. It's starting to move into the northeast now. It's kind of lost a lot of steam though, and that was kind of not what we were expecting. It was over here yesterday, and now it's kind of moving into the northeast. It's most of the bulk of the rain was supposed to be moving into Maine. It doesn't look like it's going to happen anymore. Then you have a few thunderstorms in the monsoon area, as well as a few isolated thunderstorms throughout the rest of the nation. But let's move on to the Storm Prediction Center. I do want to go into the thunderstorm outlook. So we do have an enhanced risk today, which is 3 out of 5 in areas like Bismarck, Fargo, and Aberdeen. And I'm going to include Grand Forks in there as well. Slight risk just around that area in Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota, and in a marginal risk in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, South Dakota, and North Dakota. Everywhere else that's shaded is under that general thunderstorm category, which means that there's a chance for thunderstorms, but there's a very low chance that any of them are severe. If you're in the marginal risk, 1 out of 5, slight 2 out of 5, enhanced 3 out of 5. Now, let's look into the excessive rainfall outlook. We also have some slight risks associated with that same system. We have slight risks for flash flooding in North Dakota, Minnesota, South Dakota, and Wisconsin. Marginal risks in Minnesota, Wisconsin, South Dakota, North Dakota, as well as another one in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and New York, and then another one from Missouri, Arkansas, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and Pennsylvania and New Jersey, as well as DC is probably in there as well. So if you're in a marginal risk, you have a 5 to 10% chance of rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance. And then if you're in that slight risk, you have a 10 to 20% chance. Now let's move on to the tropics. So nothing's expected in the next 48 hours in the Atlantic. The East Pacific, we do have this one disturbance here, low near 0%. So basically this is kind of like a glitch, but there's still a very, very, very slight chance of formation in 48 hours, but it's very, very unlikely. And we will look more into this when we get to the 5-day outlook. Central Pacific, really nothing there. 5-day outlook, we'll go from central back over. Nothing in the central. Eastern Pacific, we do have this system right here. You're showing a 30% chance of cyclone formation in 5 days. This area has been getting less and less in area. So the area is starting to kind of downsize, and so is the percentages. Percentages are kind of starting to drop a little bit. I mean, it's 30%, and I would probably expect this to maybe form into a depression, not much after that. I think there's another one that's going to be coming up in the next few weeks that will pose more of a threat to the East Pacific. Now for the Atlantic, we do have nothing here, but we are going to look more into that. There are some waves off the West African coast that could see some investigating in the next few weeks. So let's move on to the drought conditions. So it's basically the same thing as yesterday. I just wanted to bring it up again. So if you're in the yellow, you're dry. You are abnormally dry for this year. So that is that yellow. If you're in this like salmon color, you're in a moderate drought. This fire orange color is a severe drought. This red color is an extreme drought. And if you're in like this dark maroon, I don't think there's anything there right now, but that would be an exceptional drought. So the big area, the driest area right now, is in areas of Colorado, New Mexico. So basically the areas that are starting to get into the monsoon now. So that is good news. We also have some dry spots in the west as well as in the northeast. Everywhere else is in the kind of that abnormally dry area. So that is, except for those areas, everything is looking pretty decent. There's not much exception. There's not any exceptional drought, which is good, because those take a lot of time to get out of. But we have a lot of extreme drought in those monsoon areas, so hopefully the monsoon does a little bit better with taking care of that, kind of lessen the blow a little bit. But other than that, just some few severe drought areas, moderate drought areas, and then a lot of abnormally dry. Now let's move on to the negative 3 kilometer model, where we're going to be tracking those two storms, the one in the northeast as well as that monsoon. So as you can see, it's showing a little bit less in Maine. I think northern Maine will probably get a little bit more, which is good. If we go back to our drought index, that is where most of the moderate to severe drought is. But then that moves off the coast, mostly impacting the areas that were in that marginal risk for the flash flooding in our excessive rainfall outlook. And then everything kind of dries out from there in the northeast. Next system rolls in. That is most likely going to be where we get that marginal risk. That starts to bow out. That's the bow echo. If you don't know what that means, I do link the deep dive derechos up above in the cards. Now the monsoon really doesn't show up on the map until here. Then we kind of see it a little bit. But generally, you have the super soaker moving off the coast. Rounds thunderstorms still in the northern tier of the country. And the monsoon is still going on at this time. Now let's move on to the GFS. I do want to go a little bit into tropics, so I'm going to start with the East Pacific. Then we'll move to the Atlantic, and then we'll call it a day. So in the East Pacific, you have this system really not showing any development. I mean, possibly depression for a few hours. That, like, probably maybe for 6 hours. Then you have this next system that we've been showing coming off the coast. Here we have two systems, one more stronger than the other. They both seem to kind of develop here, but this one is much stronger to begin with, then this one starts to intensify after it. As well, it's moving a lot faster. So we've seen this kind of up and down pattern with the GFS. One day it's showing a severe hurricane in the East Pacific, the next day it's not. I mean, this is about 2 to 3 weeks out. So this is, the end of this is August 1st. So we're currently like halfway through July, so this is another half a month away. So we still have time for that. So right now we're kind of in a lull, and it looks like things are going to be picking up here. So now let's move on to the North Atlantic, where we kind of have that same story, the lull in the action right now. We're all kind of taking a breather. It's been a pretty active start to the season, but hopefully we see some of these West African disturbance line systems start to develop here. There's a few that could possibly develop, but we just don't have that much information yet to really determine that. I saw something where they're looking at like spaghetti models of storms that could form, the next possible invests, but right now, according to the GFS model, there really isn't much to watch at the moment. So that is where I'm going to leave it off today. This is kind of a long video, so I'm going to leave it there. I hope you all have a great Friday, and I'll see you again tomorrow.